Okay, so that was the intro that I made together with Andrew. Oh, I forgot his last name because I'm terrible at names. Andrew Burris, yes. And he has already shown his part that he made. So I'm first going to kick off with the part that I made because you guys were really asking me to show the part that I did. So let's open up the render or the file. I mean, so the first file. I believe you guys did see the drawings, right? Okay, maybe not all of you, so I can show you the drawings first. So it starts with this one, and we actually had some more ideas than what finally ended up. Our plan was to add a little like landmarks for different cities and stuff, and it was a bit too ambitious for this year. So maybe next year we get more. So the idea was to have this all moving and have the cities like represented by dots. And then slowly everything was moving together into like one big clump of cubes. And the cubes start moving in one big sweep and then come back around and turn into a little ball. And then the logo eyelashes appear and the Blender text, world and meetup come in, and then you have the logo. So it more or less kept to that idea. So while Andrew was working on the beginning part, I did the second part. And I first did it low poly to like not have to worry about. I already made the high poly model, but like to not have to worry about the high poly model while doing the low poly. So I made a low poly Earth model. We look at this one. So this is like the low poly version of the just the icosphere with I believe 2 subdivisions. And I call it blue and green. Kind of looks like Earth. Like you can see Europe here and tiny Africa, Asia, North, South America. Looks like Earth. And of course the words. And let's spell it. And then I animated them like that they moved a bit. And then the first part, and that was the harsh part, that was how to do the particles. Like how to make them like move seemingly randomly, random, but still have them follow a path. And there is a thing for that in Blender, and it's called curve guide. So when you add force fields to manipulate a certain particle field, you get several things like just a regular force. You can do a wind, a vortex, whatever. And there's also a curve guide. What a curve guide does, it makes a force field that like makes the particles follow along a curve. So I made a curve that roughly resembles the way I want the particles to float. So they will start over here. If we can actually look here. So they start on the back side and they spread out very quickly. And then they curve around along the path. So they move into a smaller piece. And then finally they turn into the Earth. And there was a bit of tweaking around. It's not the easiest thing to do. And the settings are here with the force field settings. And there are tutorials on this, so I'm not going to go into much detail. I just followed the tutorials basically. But you have different ways of making the particles behave along the way. And what I did was like having them spread out very fast and then go in slowly towards the end. And then that's basically the effect I needed. But that wasn't all, that wasn't enough. So if I hide these for a second, see the thing was, I wanted them to have like turn around in the end. So when they hit the end of the line, I didn't want them to just disappear because normally the length of the path is also the length of the lifeline. So the particles would like die in the end. And you can do that by setting the free value to a higher value, which means that they get a little more to live at the end of the path. So the path is not the end. There's a little light at the end of the tunnel. I like to have like conversation with the chat. So if anyone wants to ask, I have the chat open so I can read your questions. So the thing I added was vortex. And a vortex is like your kitchen sink. It sucks the particles to the center while keeping their angular momentum, and even having, like, the closer they are, the faster their angular momentum is. That's some physics right there, conservation of energy and stuff. Anyway, it was perfect for my purposes. So what it means, I have to bring the particles back for that. What it means is that if they went closer in, they slowly went down in the sink, in the kitchen sink, that is the vortex in the end. So they keep turning around until they disappeared. But the point then was, like, okay, how do I go from, like, a rough cloud of cubes into a sphere? And what I did for that was adding to the actual sphere another particle system. So if I hide this one, you can see there are other particles in the sphere. And if I rotate these, could I turn up the DPI? I can change the font back to the normal font, I believe. Yeah, I like serif font, so I changed it, but you get a point there. Let's see, textile. If it's not too hard to change it back. I don't know where the font settings are anymore. Wasn't there, like, a separate... I can just, like... Did I save this one? Save this one. Cool. Because it's cool. So, and I can just do the default. Can I? Just pick one. Elysium. It actually doesn't change the fonts. I forgot where I changed them. Oh, here, interface font. Okay, so I just need to delete these. Bam! And increase the DPI. So, okay. I hope these letters are big enough. They're quite big, but no, works. Okay, so if you see, there is another particle system, and this one, I'll up the display amount of it. Let's see, display 100%. And this is actually a keyed one, because I wanted them to rotate with the sphere. I say sphere with a weird accent. Anyway, and it like rotates around exactly with the same speed as the globe does. And then gradually there are more and more and more and more and more, and then they start disappearing and getting smaller and sinking into the globe, and they're gone. And if I change this to view render only, display only render, you can actually see that at this point there is no globe. And then as I go further and further and further, at one point, and I believe that's here, pop, you see the globe popping in. But because everything is moving so fast, you don't actually really notice that, like, the sphere pops in. Now you do, because there's a big color difference. And that was something else I figured out, and for that we need to go to our material settings. So if I go to the cube object that I used for the particle system, it's in here, it's this one, you can actually see that I have the image texture, and the image texture is just two colors. In this case, it's of course the high resolution one for the final one. But for now it's just two colors, weather and land. But it's taking the texture coordinates from duplicates. And what it means is that it's using the location of the particles when they were created as the origin of the UV. Which means that if your cube is created on the globe where there's a part of grass, because it's this part of the UV, then the cube will also have UVs at this part, which means the cube will be green. And that gives us, and the sad thing is that doesn't work in the viewport yet. It probably will with the new viewport in 2.8. So I have to view render for this. I hope that it doesn't like slow down too much. But you can see that the particles, the cubes actually color towards the color of where they were created. And this is not only working here in this low poly version, but this also works in the high resolution. I'm not going to show it because it will slow down the stream too much. If I start rendering that, my PC is not, it's good, but it's not super good. And you can see that it actually colors it. And that helps a lot with the effect of a disappearing Earth, because you quite see it now, because in the final animation I even upped the amount of particles a little more. So yeah, that's basically it, what I did for the intro video. And for the rest, it was just animating, it's just animation for the different parts. So the words are all connected to an empty. For that, I need to show non-render parts again. So you see the words are all connected to an empty, and that empty turns around when the letters turns around, and that way I can make it rotate around the cube. And for the little wiggle effect you see here, if I go further, I didn't want to animate it all, but that's no need, because you have something called Modifier for the curves, for the F curves. So if you look over here, you see modifiers. I have now the Z location selected in the curves. Everything is a bit clearer with this high DPI one. You can see Z location, and I have added the noise modifier, and this noise modifier is modifying. So if we like enhance the curve, you can see that it's adding a noise wave. And if I change the phase, you can see that it has different noise. And with that, you can very quickly like make a camera shake effect, or a wiggle effect, or a float effect, or everything. And there are more modifiers to play with, but especially the noise modifier is a very, very useful one, as is the cycles one, that makes it cyclic. And that was, of course, used in our previous tutorial. Let's see, we have a note from Andrew Battery. Okay, so yeah, there are 3 different particle systems, and 2 of them are keyed particles, and they actually don't use physical calculation, but just regular calculation. And the only one with like the particles floating around, that's the Newtonian one. So that's for the intro part, and of course with the final render I replaced these with the models for the render I used for the still logos.